Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trading the Close. My name is Gareth Soloway, and I am here with some pretty remarkable price action. Markets ripping today again, led by the semiconductors. We obviously saw good news from Cisco on earnings. Walmart was good earnings as well. Throw in the unemployment, or I should say the non-farm payrolls, not the non-farm payrolls. It was the jobless claims, excuse me, that were better than expected, and that ultimately made for a recipe for a rally. I can't forget retail sales as well. Retail sales coming out amazingly well. So all of this combined, good earnings, good economic data, everyone forgetting about just 1.5 weeks ago when the markets were cratering and buying the dip like crazy as if it was going out of style. So markets again ripping higher today. Let's take a look at what we have on the data board here. We have the Dow up about 469 points. NASDAQ is ripping 400 points. That's 2.3%. Incredible move there. And then we also have the S&P 500 up 1.5% or 81 points. Oil getting a small bid today, up about 75 cents. Gold fractionally higher. Bitcoin is under pressure. Man, I got to just shake my head at Bitcoin today. Not exactly the price action that you'd want to see on a risk on day in the Bitcoin market or in the overall market. So again, that's something we're going to discuss in a little bit about what is going on with crypto as it struggles so mightily during this period. All right. So again, overall, folks, good economic news, good earnings news have pushed us to a massive rally here just in the last week or so. And again, it all started really last week. I mean, we had a bunch of choppy days after Monday, but it was last Thursday that we got that better than expected jobless claims number, and that really kick-started the price action. Here's your price action today, guys. It was up, and away, very light volume. So again, I always harp on this volume aspect because it is important. When you see volume that is extremely light, what does it tell us? It tells us that essentially big money is not buying it. So I always am more cautious when that happens. But again, as long as you got enough retail investors buying the markets, you will see further upside here. Now, there are some keys I want to go over. So we had that danger zone in the S&P 500 or the SPY. Today we opened above it. I mean, just incredible. And this just shows you that nothing's infallible. You could have such a great zone, doesn't really matter. The markets can do whatever they want to do at any point. Having said that, there are some keys to take note of, right? So if we do a Fibonacci retrace from the high here, and let me get my fib tool up. If we take the all-time high to the recent low, look at what we kissed today, the 786 Fibonacci. So again, they took us above the danger zone, but right to the 786 fib. And notice how the 786 aligns with this high pivot right here as well. So we are into a little bit of resistance here on the S&P 500. I would dare say that if we get through this tomorrow, then we easily are going back to the all-time highs and at least doing a double top, if not taking it out. And again, I don't know if we'll take it out, but in the very least, if we get through this 786, there's not a whole lot of resistance until you fill the gap at double top, which again is all-time high. And again, that would be considered a technical double top on the charts. All right, if we go to the NASDAQ 100, taking a look at this, guys, the NASDAQ 100 completing a 618 Fibonacci retrace. Also, this little pivot high right here, this former little area right here, and this low. And then if we do continue up, this has a key gap fill right around 480.75, and that would be your next level to look at. That would be about $6 higher on the NASDAQ 100 QQQ. All right, so just something to kind of keep an eye on there. Now, after the bell, we do have Applied Materials earnings. That is a semiconductor, and the semis have just been on fire. Take a look at NVIDIA today, up another 4%. This stock, a whopping 35% gain now. Take a look from the low to today's high, 35% move. And again, if this was like a $100 billion company or a small cap, it'd be like, oh, well, no big deal. What's the big deal? 35% in 10 days or 9 days. This is a 1 point, or was a 1 point and changed, or I should say 2 point something trillion dollar company prior to this move. So that's basically nearing the $3 trillion marker again on NVIDIA. Pretty remarkable move. Again, it is at resistance here. This is the Fibonacci retrace and a gap fill. And then you have a secondary gap fill right up here. But again, Applied Materials, AMAT is the symbol on that. Those earnings should be out at any moment here, and that will be the key to tomorrow's semiconductor price action. By the way, speaking of which, take a look at SMCI. This stock dropped 20% on earnings about a week ago. Since then, let's do a calculation here as well. Look at the size of this rally. All right. So again, SMCI is up 32% after having bad earnings that dumped the stock 20%. I think that's pretty remarkable if you think about it. Again, bad earnings and the stock again drops, but then rebounds. And in fact, we actually got through the gap fill, which was the closing price prior to those earnings announcement. That earnings announcement, you can see right here's where we closed. Here's where we opened and sold off. And then look at the rally. We are back above that level. Now, one of the levels I'm watching on this is very clear. See this pivot low right here, right around $710. If we do get up there, that is going to be monumental resistance on the chart of the SMCI or super micro computer. All right. So again, just a few things there. Let's take a look here at AMAT, Applied Materials, initially dipping. I'm assuming earnings are out here. Stock is just whipsawing a little bit here in the after hours. Here we come again. So it looks like earnings are out. The stock is selling a little bit, but this is very preliminary. Earnings are just out. Looks like we closed at 212 and we're currently trading around 209. That's not a big move. That to me is not a big move whatsoever. But again, even if you have a small down day, and listen, it could get bigger or we could even go green. We don't know yet. But ultimately, any sort of kind of neutral would probably be a negative for the semis after such a big rally. They need to see that continual one-upsmanship, meaning that they have to get better and better news to justify the rallies that we've seen. One thing I think was interesting going into AMAT earnings, Applied Materials earnings, is look at the rally and look at where it went right into a technical resistance level. So not entirely surprising to see a little bit of a sell-off here. It'll be just interesting to see where ultimately it kind of figures its way out in the after hours here. So far, honestly, barely a downtick. That is not a big move whatsoever. All right, let's flip over to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin continues to disappoint bulls today. Again, this is a day where you would say, wow, the NASDAQ was up 2.3%. The S&P was up 1.6%. Bitcoin should be up $2,000-$3,000 on today. It should be up 5%, right? It generally does a bigger percentage move than the S&P 500. Today, Bitcoin's down. All right, down decently too, to 2.7% on my chart here. Again, what is the key thing? This trend line right here. This trend line here has been my pivot line. If we confirm above it, then that's obviously a flip over to the bullish side. But again, we have not done that. We closed above, never confirmed. And that's always a warning sign. When you can't confirm above a level, that's telling you the institutions are likely trying to rug pull and fool people. And sure enough, they've now brought it back in. But again, I do like to show the difference here. If you look at the S&P, right, let's go to the spiders. Look at this incredible move to the upside, right? Just a vertical. I mean, you don't get much more vertical on a stock market than this. I mean, this is about as vertical as I've ever seen in terms of upside. In fact, I think the S&P's up 8 and change percent in 9 trading days just off of this low level. Then you flip back to Bitcoin and it's just night and day. I mean, yeah, Bitcoin had a good bounce initially, but since then it's just trailed off while the S&P has continued to rip higher. So that is a concern. If there's a good opportunity for Bitcoin to go higher, this is it. Again, what is it? Is it a risk off asset like gold? Is it a risk on asset like the markets? That's the question. And it still seems like Bitcoin's trying to figure itself out. Maybe it's nothing. But ultimately, we did see it panic and sell when the stock market was selling. Then it did have an initial snapback, but now it's kind of just lost itself and gone into this gray zone of uncertainty. All right. Gold today, a little bit of an uptick on gold, not much on the back of those good jobless claims numbers. And again, nothing much to write home about on gold today. Silver, though, silver had a very strong move. Now, let's talk about silver here. So silver breaking above this trend line, it still needs to confirm. Otherwise, I would be very skeptical on it. But I will say this, guys. The key of understanding why did silver outperform gold today is very simple. All right, silver is when I look at silver, I say, all right, it's at least 50% an industrial metal and then 50% store of safety. Well, today we just got great economic news, right? Good, solid economic news. In other words, the markets are not falling into a recession anytime soon. The economy is not falling into a recession anytime soon. So traders are readjusting the price of silver by pushing it up to compensate or to pull that into effect, right? So again, that economic news was good for the industrial side of silver. And that's why in the industrial side was the performance side today versus gold, which is more of a store of safety. You look at the stock market and you look at the economic news, there's no need for safety of gold today. There just isn't. It's risk on, baby. Risk on, well, everything about cryptocurrency, obviously. All right, on oil, let's take a quick look at oil. Oil, small update today. I added in this new trend line here. This is just a short-term trend line I'm watching. Very clear right down here. If we can break above this, then we should go up to this upper range here. If we can't, we could just find our way back down to this lower level. But again, there's no real trade here on oil that I see, at least based on the technical analysis that I'm following. Now, look at this, guys. This is pretty remarkable. So yesterday we had natural gas basically closing on this trend line. Today, nat gas made a short-term higher high, and it looked like it might break out, but this is why you have to follow the charts. Excuse me. And ultimately, no, right back in. And look at that. So again, this is just another reason why you have to respect resistance until proven otherwise. And in this situation, it looked good most of the day. And then by the end of the day, natural gas came in and settled back below that trend line. So right now, that trend line needs to be respected as resistance until something changes in the charts. All right. Other than that, again, let's do a quick check-in on Applied Materials. And really, to be honest, man, talk about a non-event here. Applied Materials basically flat. In fact, now it's actually turning slightly green. So look at that. Ooh, look at this. So Applied Materials now starting to uptick just a little bit here in the after hours. Not a big move either. But again, at least it's negating that downside. And that could ultimately keep at least the markets and the semis neutral to positive tomorrow if this can hold. Right. And again, and not that it's a big move. This isn't going to be a move that's going to trigger another massive rally in the semis, but at least they can hold, maybe slightly build on their gains. Although, again, now it's starting to come back in. So this is, by the way, when you see this action after hours, this is investors and algorithms trying to figure out what the press release means. Like, is it net positive? Is it net negative? Sometimes it's easy to see. Maybe, sometimes they're like, hey, we're warning. We had a horrible quarter, blah, 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 blah. Other times it's more nuanced where you really have to read it to decide, okay, should price go up or price go down? And that's essentially what they're doing right now as they're isolating down the price action. All right. All right, guys. So on that note, we'll see what tomorrow brings us. We'll see where AMAT is later on in the after-hours session. I'm curious where crypto goes tomorrow and where the stock market goes. But again, we're through most of the big economic data this week: CPI, PPI, retail sales. Jobless claims are even now apparently a thing, even though historically they haven't been that big of a deal. But the market is literally watching every little economic report to decide, hey, are we slipping towards recession or are we actually still in a potential soft landing scenario? Right now, the market believes soft landing again. A week ago, it was hard landing. So we'll see what tomorrow brings us. You guys have a great rest of your day. Remember, no trading to close on Friday, but I'll be back tomorrow morning for the game plan. You guys take care. Thank you.